So I'm Kathy Lipsky, and Pamela and I coordinate this, the Westchester Holistic Network. And we're happy to have you here this evening. And we're going to start off with a grounding moment. So if you can, I'm a little short person, so sometimes my feet don't touch the ground, but I've lowered my chair enough that my feet are touching the floor. Allow your eyes to gently close. Drop your shoulders down. And bring your awareness to your breath. Don't change your breathing in any way. Simply notice your breath, how it's entering your body, how it's leaving your body. Notice how your chest rises and falls with your breath, and how it seems that your body expands as you inhale, and as you exhale, your body contracts a little bit. So take a moment to simply notice that breath. Because with the breath, you can change any moment, anything that's happening in your life. How often we get into a situation where we become anxious or stressed, and we don't even notice that we stop breathing. We're holding our breath. So if you can remember to take that deep breath and let it out. And sometimes if you let it out with a sigh, it even is more helpful. So let's do that together. Take a nice deep breath in and let it out with a sigh. So deep breath in. Beautiful. So with each breath, especially tonight, let's inhale all possibilities. And as you exhale, let go of anything that is not serving you. Just let it go. Breathing in all possibilities and letting go of any limitations. So breathe. And then gently open your eyes and lift the corners of your mouth upward. Yay. Okay. So welcome everyone. And we are here tonight on the 20th of October. And Pam Cuccinell is going to offer us an astrology report, but she has promised not to let us know about the outcome of the election. So no, we don't want, we'll wait. So welcome, Pam.
Well, I will, yes, I know it's on people's minds whether they want it to be or not. So what I invite us to focus on over the next couple of weeks is the absolute energetic power of this time. This point in time is pivotal because the world is bigger than the United States, but the United States does affect the bigger world. I live in Mexico, and a phrase Mexicans say is, when the United States gets a cold, Mexico gets pneumonia. And the Canadians say, living next to the United States is like sleeping next to an elephant. So this election is important to people throughout the world. And to look at things and as light work is to bring the light in of positive change and abolishment of fear. And what is the antidote to fear? Love. And of course, we're in a very loving environment tonight, so this is all good. As we're in the middle of this month that is a once in a blue moon month. It began with a full moon. It ends in a full moon on Halloween. So the full moon on Halloween is in the sign of Taurus. So we're in waxing moon energy now. What's the outcomes of peaceful resolution, which is you can't have peace without some strife, and we are in a period of strife. And that's just the reality of the polarities that we are grappling with. And so the positives that are happening at this point in time is unprecedented amount of people are voting. This is all part of the revolution that we foresaw, because the United States has a Pluto return in a couple of years. So we're in the process of revolution in the United States. And representation, of course, is an excellent way to have voices heard. So that's a very good sign. The thing about this election that is so fraught is Mars is retrograde in the sign of Aries. So there's a lot of frustration, a lot of anxiety, which is why what Kathy began the meeting with is so uber important. Focusing on breath, calming, do not get swept into the anxiety, because the way to balance anxiety is by bringing in peaceful energy and also breath. And the reality is we are in fraught times, as I said. Mars is retrograde in the sign of Aries. It will be until November 13th. And Mercury is retrograde, and it stations direct on election day, which the last time this happened was in the year 2000, which many people remember. The difference between this election day year and what happened 20 years ago is that this is a very fated time for a message to be heard. So that's why it behooves us to concentrate on our intention of what is the message that we want to be heard. So that's what I invite us all to do. This is an excellent period, the waxing moon energization of intention. So pay attention to what's going on in your mind, because what you think actually crystallizes into reality. So it's important to be the architect of the future, because we are all lucky participants in it. And the other thing, if you want to know more, insightoasis.com or WHN, I put out the weekly forecast because I do the podcast now to let you know of what's ahead on the week. And I will be writing about the election. What I forecast is change. So may it be so.
Beautiful.
Susie.
All right. Thank you, Pam. Whew, all right. Well, I'd like to introduce you all to Grisella. And Grisella, and I'm going to put Grisella on from my place. I'm going to put her on speaker view. And if you'd like to put her on speaker view, that's as good as well. But Grisella is a New York State licensed clinical social worker, a soul realignment practitioner, and a Reiki level 2 practitioner. Her goal is to use her love of helping and working with others, utilizing and combining these modalities to help you access your divine soul gifts and live your true life purpose. And I have had an Akashic record done with Grisella recently, and I can only recommend her very highly. So Grisella, if you would unmute yourself and take it away.
Thank you so much. It is my absolute pleasure to be here with you guys. Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it. I'm trying to share my screen, so give me a minute. Talk about Mercury retrograde. It was right here and now it's not. All right, so this is me. I am a licensed clinical social worker, and I'll just give you guys a little bit of information how I came upon the Akashic Records. I was sharing it during the time when we first came on around 6:30 that I lost my dad suddenly in 2017, and that was pretty devastating for me. And I was looking for, I don't know, some kind of purpose, some kind of direction to make sense out of everything. So I had a reading that was very profound. And the one thing that the gentleman said was, you need to start looking into the Akashic Record. Well, I've heard of Akashic Records. It was kind of like a concept out in the sky in the nebula, but I never knew what it was. And I was cleaning one Saturday and I stopped for a minute. I went to my cell phone and I looked on Facebook, and my now teacher just had an advertisement that said, have you ever wanted to learn about the Akashic Record? And I was like, thank you, universe. So that was my sign. And of course I contacted her right away. And so I am a certified soul realignment practitioner. And basically what I can do is I can access people's records with their permission. So permission is very important. And as we chat, you'll be able to understand why. So my practice with the Akashic Record understands that we are divine beings, and we've all incarnated during this very interesting and once in a lifetime time for the sole purpose of having a physical experience while expressing our divinity. So we've lived a lot of lifetimes, and this lifetime, I think we can all agree, we probably have more choices than we ever did before. So now we're at a pivotal point where we're able to choose what we want to do. We're able to delve into our spirituality. We're able to figure out who we are more so than we've ever had to before. And we're actively, I think, all seeking to reconnect with our divinity. So compared to other lifetimes where we've lived in times of great lack, we lacked the most basic needs. We had to fight sometimes for food, for water, for shelter. And often we fought for survival, for religious freedom. We were relegated to the stations that we were born into, and women and children had few, if any, rights. And we weren't free to express ourselves. And if we dared to do so, we ran the risk of being persecuted, right? But now we're here and we're free and we're able to do it. So why aren't we doing it? Because we don't remember. We make decisions prior to incarnating, and we decide what we're going to do and what that's going to look like. But when we enter this third dimensional body, we forget. And many studies will say it's a good thing you forget, because it would be too confusing for you to navigate the two. You need time. You need to mature a little. You need to grow. You need to have life experiences. But we're meant to have a human experience here. But again, we have to remember that we're souls. We have to remember that we're divine. And that's where the Akashic Records come in. So for the purposes of my training and for this discussion, the Akashic Records they serve to remind us who we are. They serve to remind us who we became the very moment we were created. And they also serve to remind us why we came here in this lifetime to begin with. So what are the Akashic Records? Think of it however it'll resonate for you. I have two ways that I look at it based on my age. So I remember the big libraries where we used to go and you wanted to take out a book and you'd go to the front desk and they'd go through all these cards, right? I remember that. And then I'm computer savvy enough to know that you can do it online also, right? So you can think of it as this humongous library where all of us, every person who's ever lived, there's a big book with your name on it, or you can think of it as your own personal database. And the information that it holds is everything about you, everything about all of us. So it's your own personal database. It has your name on it, and it tells you who you were the moment you were created by Source, what your gifts are, and every single lifetime that you've lived up to and including this one. So the term Akashic, there's, if you look it up, there's different terms for it. So it's derived from the Sanskrit Akasha, meaning ether. So in Hindi, Akash means sky or heaven. The Akashic Records are housed in the 5th dimension, where there is no time and space. So let's talk a little bit about the dimensional realms. We live in the 3rd dimension. So this is where we can see, feel, touch, smell things. We time travel in the 4th dimension. So the 4th dimension is where, when we're sleeping, we're able to access our higher self, where we, during the day, we can think about what we did when we were little. We can think about what we're going to have for dinner, or where we're going to go on vacation when the world opens up. The 5th dimension, there is no time and space. And so that's non-linear. So there's no time. You can see all your lifetimes, you can see all your choices, all your decisions, and the karma that's associated with the choices, because there is karma in the Akashic Record. And basically the karma, that term in the Akashic Records, is if I make this choice, what's going to happen as a result of it. It's not meant as a punishment the way we think about it in the 3rd dimension, but it's really choice and consequence. Okay. So how can you access the Akashic Records? Some of you, if not all of you, have heard of people that do Akashic readings. They can only, your true information can only be accessed with your permission. So I don't know if you guys have heard of people that say, oh, I've read the Akashic Record for this celebrity, right? You get the information that you seek based on your intention. So my intention is always that I cannot go into anyone's record without their express permission. If you go into someone's record without permission, the Akashic Records are going to give you just that. They're going to give you faulty information because you're trying to access something that you don't have permission to do. Okay? So they'll only share what your intent is. So now we're going to talk about what happens the moment you're created by Source. And that can be whatever your reference point is. It could be God, whatever it is. But we're all created once, and we have a part A and part B of our soul's personality. Okay, so we're created, and our personality forms, and then from there we go on to have our subsequent lifetimes. And they're bestowed upon us by divine Source. So they're like our vibrational identity, if you will, and or our divine soul blueprint. So think of it like your thumbprint. It's ours, uniquely ours. So all of you, all of us, we all have our unique soul blueprint. So the part A of your soul personality, when a soul is created by Source, it needs to go somewhere to express itself. So I'm sure everybody's heard about Pleiades, but there's a whole bunch of different star systems where we go. So when Source creates us, we go to experience ourselves, and then we come back and we want to start our first incarnation. Well, wherever our soul goes, that's kind of an underlying flavor of who we are, if you will. Okay. And it determines, it has like a vibrational quality. So I'll just give you one example. My vibrational quality is that I can't invent things, I can't create things, but I can take something that's already been created and make it better. So I'm not reinventing the wheel. I'm not good at that. And I can't create things from nothing. I'm not good at that. But I can take something that's already been created. So for example, this Akashic Record, I've incorporated into my private practice. So that's one of my characteristics. The other part that we all hold is called your energy center. And this is where, that's the vibrational frequency. So when you hear as above, so below, this is the very core of who we are. This is how we can become abundant. This is how we can live our best lives, is knowing what our energy center is, understanding it, and understanding how to utilize it. It's the core of our soul personality, okay? And so utilizing our energy center, utilizing ourselves, that's the best way for us to align with divine source. So, you know, I can tell you in my own life experience, there have been times in my life where I knew I wasn't where I was supposed to be. And once I did my own reading, which you are able to do, my energy center is the energy center of truth. So what does that mean for me? That meant that I needed to always live in an area of truth in all my relationships and everything I did. And if I didn't do that, I would be very unhappy. I would feel not abundant and not myself. And in fact, the moment that I became certified as a soul realignment practitioner, I was not being honest with everything in my life. And the moment when I started to do that, yes, people became uncomfortable. And yes, certain things in my life needed to change and needed to move. But I have to tell you, the moment I started doing that is when I became the most happy. So it's really about aligning with your higher self and aligning with source. So I find that I'm able to identify that, right? There is a negative and a positive polarity to each soul. So I just shared with you part of what the negative polarity of my energy center is. A person with the energy center of truth, if they don't speak their truth and they bottle it up, they become very quiet, they become very insulated, and they separate themselves from society. So that's the negative part. And then it makes us very unhappy, and that can lead to illness, okay? And it could just lead you to not living the best life you're meant to live because you're not being true to yourself. And I can tell you that in my private practice, this has been really profound, because once I do a reading for one of my clients, I can see the thread of who they are at soul level and how they're not living their divinity, and how, you know, what a contrast that is for them. The other thing that we're able to decipher from doing an Akashic reading is the life theme that we chose. So prior to every incarnation, we choose a life theme. What life experience do we want to have? We're not here to learn lessons as soul beings. We're here to experience ourselves, and then we pick life themes for fun. So think of it like a really big Chinese menu. And you look at all these life themes and you say, that's the one I'm going to experience. Based on your life theme, you pick your spirit guides, you pick where you're going to live, what kind of life you're going to have, you pick your family members, you pick your whole scenario. My life theme is ease. So the trick for me is to experience ease in this life, but you also have to look at it, the pendulum, right? I said there was positive and negative. So that means that in this lifetime, I have to be careful not to make things very difficult in my life. So some life themes that, you know, I've come up with is love, acceptance, abundance. And again, you know, it runs the pendulum, and what you want to always do is be on the positive side of it. There's also blocks and restrictions in our Akashic records, again, because of karma. So any choice, now think about all the choices that you guys made just today alone. You woke up this morning, you had breakfast, you decided what you were going to wear, you went to work, or you sat at your computer. All these choices and decisions, believe it or not, are in your Akashic record. And 90% of them they're just choices. They're just in there. It's the choices that we make that are so against our divinity that become blocks and restrictions. So, you know how I said that you're created by source, and then you go off to have your first incarnation, and you go from life to life. If there's a lifetime, and most of us have it, where we went so against our divinity that it caused a whole bunch of blocks and restrictions. And that's why I have this backpack here, because it follows you. So you pass away that lifetime, and it follows you into every subsequent lifetime, including this one. So that's really fascinating when I do a reading and I tell somebody, you know, you have a block and restriction about insecurity, about unhappiness, about putting other people before yourself. And they say to me, oh my goodness, I do that today. And it's because you've been carrying it around and there's flavors of it in your current life. So some of the ones that come up, they're called vows, contracts, bargains, and they mean exactly what they mean to us here. It's just you may take a vow of poverty. You may have taken a vow of poverty in that lifetime. And so in this lifetime, no matter how much money you make, there's never enough. Or maybe you just have enough to pay your bills, and that's it. You may have entered into a contract of obedience, and you may find that in this lifetime, you're always afraid to speak up, or you're always kind of in a subservient position with people, with friends, with loved ones, with your bosses. Bargains, you may have entered a bargain of, I'm trying to think of a bargain right now that I read, a bargain of suffering, where you agreed that you were going to sacrifice yourself for somebody else. And so in this lifetime, you find yourself suffering. So what does the soul realignment do? I cannot tell you, I can't say to you in my practice, this is all the lifetimes you've had and this is everything that you've been through. What I can tell you in a reading is who you became the moment you were created by source, and the very lifetime where you went against your divinity and what that looks like. And I can explain it to you in great detail. And it's usually several lifetimes ago. And then I can also tell you the blocks and restrictions that you have in this lifetime. I can clear everything out and I can bring you back to when source first created you. And I call that a honeymoon period. Because what happens is then post clearing, once your soul is cleared and you're back to origination, you have to make little small changes. And I think this scares people sometimes because they think, oh my gosh, I have to leave my spouse or quit my job or, you know, leave the country. And it's really not like that. Mine was of truth, right? That was my my energy. And, you know, based on my blocks and restrictions, I needed to learn how to speak my truth. I needed to learn how to say no sometimes. I needed to learn that if, you know, I got 6 invitations, maybe I can only say yes to 4 of them. So it's those small little changes that we make in our life that really are the most profound, and they allow us to lead a very healthy life. And the other thing that comes up in the Akashic Records a lot are your chakras. So a lot of these programs that I mentioned of suffering and, you know, vows of poverty, they actually show up in your chakras. So while I'm able to clear your chakras, I always recommend that you pay special attention to those chakras going forward, because if I did your reading and I found your blocks from 20 lifetimes ago, you've had that chakra blocked for all those lifetimes. So I do recommend that. And what else can I find in your Akashic Records? I can find your spirit guides and what their role is in this lifetime for you. I can tell you if your chakras are aligned. So after a reading, there are different types of readings that you can do. And I have clients that come back to me like 6-8 months after having a reading, and they say, you know, Grisella, everything was going really great, and now I feel kind of off. And I can do a chakra alignment, and I can tell them, you know, this chakra is misaligned. What's going on with that? So obviously, if it's a throat chakra, we'd be looking at communication and things like that. We can see how current life situations are impacting you, because that also shows up in your Akashic Record. What type of business or profession you're best suited for based on your soul group and your energy center, and how connected you are to people in relationships. So they're called relationship readings. And I have people that do relationship readings with children, with spouses, with professional colleagues, because in every relationship you have, there's an Akashic record to that relationship. So there's a possibility that there may have been something, you know, from lifetimes ago, and that's why you guys are always butting heads, or, you know, why one is always more controlling than another, or why you guys can't ever seem to be happy for long periods of time without something going on, and what your manifestation style is. So I'll describe what that is. Everybody is able to manifest differently. My manifestation style, I thought, was that I could have a whole bunch of things up at the air at the same time. So I could be doing this, I could be doing that. I was good at it. When I looked up my manifestation style, it said, no, you're supposed to be doing things one thing at a time. And it really shocked me. And I thought, okay, let me try it for a little bit. And I have to tell you, it made me so happy, because I was running myself ragged trying to do everything, when in fact my style is completely the opposite. And I just found that I was able to get more done and be more productive that way. I can also tell you about the energetic property in your home. So you have a reading, you're completely cleared, you come to me 2 weeks later and say, why is everything in my house so crazy right now? The reason why it's so crazy is when you first bought that home, when you first rented that space, like energy met with like energy. So I do always recommend, if you're going to have an Akashic record reading, you should probably have a property clearing shortly thereafter, so that you guys are on the same vibrational space, because properties have been around for thousands of years, and there's the house that you live in now could have been a burial ground thousands of years ago. It could have been a battleground thousands of years ago. So you want to make sure that your property is vibrating at the same level as yours. That's the Akashic record. That's my presentation. I want to thank you. This is my information here, and Kathy also has access to it. Just one more thing. Oh, I guess it's not there. No. There is a crystal party on the 23rd that's free, that I wanted to invite everybody to. I can send Kathy that link. Again, the Akashic records have a lot to do with chakras. And so it's just going to be like a fun little party for everybody to talk about crystals and etc. So I can send Kathy that link. I thought it was on here.
I'm opening up the questions. You can take yourself off of mute and fight amongst yourselves to ask Grisella the crazy questions that you might have.
And
Grisella, they want your email
yes,
too.
of course, and forgive me because I speak fast. I'm from Brooklyn, so I'm always like, brrr, you know. So my email.
I have a question. Is the soul realignment practitioner, is that the same as what you studied to learn about the Akashic records, or is that different?
No, that's the certification that you get once you study for the Akashic records. Yeah.
2 questions actually. The first one is, what is the process like? Is it called a reading? Is that what you do?
It's a reading.
So is it in person? Can you do it virtually? Like, do people participate in it? Or like, I've had energy readings where I've just had to like lay down and I'm not even like with the person. I'm just curious about that. And then I have another question if we have time.
Because of COVID, all my readings are remote. They're done by phone, teleconferencing. I record it for you because there is so much information. You're completely overwhelmed by everything. So it takes a little bit of time for you to digest it. So it's done via telephone, and you just sit back and enjoy. And you obviously ask questions. Some readings go very quick because the person's just sitting there like, oh my God, this is a lot of information. And then some readings take a little longer. So generally about an hour.
Cool. I was really curious about that first part that you said, that you interpret like a person's first lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
Do you do that? Like, is it very literal, or is it like is it, I don't know if you can share maybe something about your own reading. Like, is it esoteric, or is it like very literal? Or
it is very literal. very literal. So I'll give you mine. It was 20 lifetimes ago. And I was a nun.
Okay.
Wow. And if you know me, it makes perfect sense that I ran away from the nunnery. Interesting thing though, when I did a reading for my wife, hers was 20 years ago, and you can't cheat in the Akashic Records. You ask the question and whatever you get, you get. So her a lifetime where her blocks and restrictions showed up was also 20 lifetimes ago, and she was a nun. And I know that we've had many lifetimes together. She stayed, very typical of her personality, right? She does what she has to do, and I'm a little bit of a rebel, so I left. But I carried all the guilt with me, and that's the stuff that came up in my record. So it is very, you get a story, get a full story. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Pretty
Thank
well.
you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I have a question. Could you tell us something about the nature of the training that you received?
Yes.
What was involved with it?
So the training was very involved. It was, again, done remotely. I want to say 40 or 50 videos worth. You have to complete one with authority before you can continue. So they teach you how to access, because there's a certain way for you to access the fifth dimension. In order to access the fifth dimension, you have to be in the fifth dimension. So they teach you that entire process. And the guidelines are very strict. You have to have 10 clients that, you know, people that you know, and you ask them, please, you know, let me do a reading for you. And they have to do a very detailed questionnaire and send that to the instructor. And that's the only way you get certified.
Very good, thank you.
Question. First of all, thank you. It was really very informative, and I think it was beautiful. The whole PowerPoint was very beautiful to look at and everything. So I wanted to find out, is everybody able to, you know, let's say qualify, or is it people who are destined to be able to read the Akashic Records?
No, everybody that I'm looking at right now is able and qualified to do it.
Okay.
And I can actually send that that information also. I don't have it on me now, or else I would put it in the chat. If anyone's interested in learning to read the Akashic Record, because isn't that what happens? That, you know, you come for a presentation and it hits you and you go, my God, this is what I've always wanted to do. And I believe there's room for all of us. So if you guys are interested in that, I'll send it to Kathy and she can forward it on to you.
And is there a way of changing the past or no?
You can't change the past, because on the thing with the Akashic Records is it's fact-based. So this is who Iris was when Source created her. This is Iris's soul personality, her soul thumbprint. And these are all the lifetimes that Iris lived. What can be changed is that through a reading, you're able to remove your baggage. So those things that happened as a result of you going against your divinity and that have followed you into this lifetime. And I think if anything blows a client away the most is when I tell them, hey, I found this, this, and this, and this in your past. And they go, that's exactly what's happening to me right now. And I know nothing about them because I asked nothing of them except, you know, their name, their birth date, etc.
So I have a question too. Then once you have that information, I'm Beverly.
Hi, Beverly.
Hi. Once you have that information and they say, well, you know, that's what's happening now, then how do you move ahead with that?
And so you move ahead by making small, tiny choices. So again, I can use myself as an example. My energy was of truth. I can tell you that I was allowing other people to silence me. I was not able to be myself. And that's how I was not living my truth. So I had to make a choice, right? And my choice was, I'm not going to live like this anymore. I'm me. This is who I am. And so, and in little things in my life where normally I'd be like, okay, I'm annoyed, but I'm not going to say anything. I now understand that I have to say things, but I say it with love, you know, and you're a little clumsy in the beginning because you're not used to doing it. So I found myself telling the people in my life, I'll share a very personal story. I have a friend that I adore, and we've been friends for many years. She can be a little abrasive, but not all the time, and not, we were having a conversation, we were having a friendly Friday friend cocktail party, and she yelled and humiliated me. She yelled at me, and I didn't do anything. I waited for the Zoom to be over, and I called her and I said, you know, you really behaved inappropriately with me, and I love you, but I need you to know that I can't allow you to talk to me like that anymore. And that was the first time I had ever done that. And our relationship is better than it's ever been. But that was me speaking my truth. So it's those little things. So we're not running away. And I will tell you, I won't say it's not running away, leaving a marriage. For some people, it may be. You know, it depends on everybody's personal, but it's really about living the life that you're meant to live.
And it's incredible that you just used that example, because that's something I should have just done with my ex. I mean, it's the exact same thing. I did not speak, and I walked away, and I felt very badly about that I should have said something right on the spot, you know. Were you guided at the time with your reading to understand what changes needed to be made, or did you come to that on your own?
I will tell you that if you ever have an Akashic Record reading, you can't unknow what you learn. So it's something that permeates you. So I liken it to deja vu. So you get a reading and you've never heard this before, but it sticks literally to your very soul, and it resonates and it makes sense. And then you start, you know, that's why I always tell my clients, please, you know, at the end of this, go home, listen to the reading, because there's so much information. And then little by little, you start extrapolating, and you connect your own dots. You connect your own dots in your relationships.
I missed it. How long did you say it takes when you do a reading?
When I sit with a client, I always say around an hour. So I say an hour. And I didn't say for members, there's an always 10% discount. But
I think Janet Catalina had her hand raised.
Now you can see.
Mhm.
I'm like thinking, do I want a reading? I'm feeling very happy with everything in my life, so that I'm not feeling like there are things that I want to change, but I'm curious more about my life purpose and moving forward with that. Is that something that I could get from an Akashic reading?
Absolutely. What I thought you were going to say initially, Janet, was I'm scared to death. I've had people tell me that, and once I do their reading, they understand why. Because that lifetime was so traumatic for them. But I've also had people say to me, my life is great. Great. Then let's look and see who you are. Let's look and see what your life purpose is. And let's see how you can leverage that, you know, going forward.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Grisella, it's Pamela. You mentioned a lot of things that the Akashic Records can do.
Mm-hmm.
Is that for one session, or does somebody say, hey, I'd like to understand this relationship as opposed to the home, the relationship, the past life, et cetera, et cetera? Would that be more of a series of sessions, or how does that work?
So the realignment session, that's the first session. That's the session where I'm able to tell you who you were the moment Source created you, what your divine gifts are. And I'm able to tell you the exact lifetime in detail that you went against that. And then I'm able to talk to you about your current life and how that's followed you. That's a soul realignment reading. And then subsequent readings are a property clearing. A spirit, I can tell you in a soul realignment reading how many guides you have. So I can tell you you have 6 spirit guides right now, but I can't identify them. I can identify them in another reading, because that reading is just for your spirit guides, where your spirit guides give you messages. I can tell you how they get your attention. Like, some spirit guides are birds. Some spirit guides do a ringing in your ear. Some spirit guides do the phone. They'll ping the phone so you can hear them. Relationship readings is another separate reading, and that's a pretty powerful reading, because it takes the two people and how many lifetimes have you been together, how are you guys connected, are there any blocks and restrictions that can be addressed and removed, to make your relationship better. And again, for parents and children, for spouses, for business relationships.
So
they're all
to
separate.
your point that you can't or should not open the Akashic Records unless there's permission granted.
Mhm.
How does that work with a child, spouse, boss? I mean, are both people in the session, or how does that work?
So with a child, an underage child, as a matter of fact, I have one coming up, the parent can give permission for an underage child. And depending on the child that I'm going to do the reading for happens to be very spiritually gifted. But I would always, again, the licensed clinical social worker in me worries about the child, right? And whether they're able to hear all of this. So I'm going to want to, and I'll stick to this, where I'll tell the parent, I'm going to share with you, and then you figure out a way how to best, disseminate the information to your child accordingly, because some of the information is a little hard.
And that's important, I would imagine, in the certification as well, that the Akashic Record practitioner is vetted to do things in a certain consulting,
Right.
integrity, and respectful way.
Yeah, and
Thank you.
You're welcome. I think that's one of the reasons why I was drawn to this particular practice, the social worker in me, the privacy part. And we have regular practitioner calls where people will call from all over the world. And I can't tell you how many times that question comes up. And my teacher is very adamant and very strict about that. You do not have permission to access anything for anyone without their express permission. It's not acceptable. Yeah.
Excellent.
Are you a
Thank you.
teacher?
Am I a teacher? No, I'm a clinical social worker. I'm a school social worker. That's my day job.
Oh, so am I.
Yeah, I just had a question that was following up about if you wanted to know something about your connection with a adult child. So is there any way you cannot give me information about their Akashic records, but in my Akashic record, would that have information that could be useful for me?
It might. So I'll give you an example of that. A soul contract. So soul contracts are not positive. They're very negative. And I'll give you an example, one reading, a soulmate contract. I'm sorry, I couldn't think of the word. Soulmate contracts, they're not romantic. They're actually very negative. And when I was giving the reading to my client and I gave her the flavor, because they run a program, she said, stop right there. And I'm like, are you okay? Did I upset her? She said, you're talking about my daughter. So depending on what I find in your record, it may resonate with you. That's my kid, or that's my relationship with my ex-husband, or that's my sibling, because I will give you, where I can't give you a story, I can only give you the blocks and restrictions for this current life. And I say to my clients, I don't need to know. It's personal, it's yours. Some share, some don't. But what I share with you may resonate. There's something called compassionate connections. That's a block and a restriction where we give so much of ourselves and we get nothing in return. And it could either be with a family member, a friend, a colleague, or a love interest. So if I say to you, you have a compassionate connection with a family member, that might be a kid or a relative or a parent, etc. So you connect the dots. It's easy to do that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Angelo had a question.
Yeah, back to my question as a teacher. I realized maybe you thought I meant a school teacher. I meant, do you train Akashic Record and
No.
this
And
stuff? Okay.
and I say it that way because my instructor is very protective of her copyright. She goes out of her way to be like, this is mine. You know, you can be a practitioner, but you can't take my stuff. So I am more than happy to share it with everyone, because I find it fascinating and I just figure everybody else does. And she's the best. I'm so glad that I was trained by her. And she runs trainings periodically, very frequently, as a matter of fact. So I will be more than happy to share that. I think Cynthia, yeah.
Yes, I wanted to know what you feel the relationship is between your delving into the Akashic records of a person that is coming to you, as opposed to a person themselves doing past life regression as guided.
So I love past life regressions. I haven't found a good one yet. I am dying to find one. And I'll tell you why. Because what I can offer you is the exact lifetime where you went against your divinity, right? And I can tell you in great detail how you did that. And I can clear it for you, right? But having said that, I also know that you took that baggage, you put it on your back, and you proceeded to live subsequent lifetimes. So me personally, I'm fascinated to find out, how did that play out for me in subsequent lifetimes? So I feel that they work very well together, but you know, you need to know what you're clearing first, what you're getting rid of, and then how did you have this play out in other lifetimes? So I think the two modalities work very nicely together.
Okay.
Grisella, just to clarify on that, this is Beverly again. If you clear it, are you clearing it, if it's something that happened 20 years ago, are you clearing it in the 20 years ago in that time period, which you recognize it? And then, you know, if you clear it, does it affect all the time after that?
So it's 20 lifetimes. And what I'm clearing is when I go in your record and I say, tell me who Beverly is at origination, and they tell me. And tell me if Beverly has blocks and restrictions, and they give me that information. And I say, when did this happen? So what I'm cleaning is your Akashic record, because technically there shouldn't be anything in your Akashic record but your divinity, and all the choices and decisions you made, but not the blocks and restrictions. So the data, the detail of that lifetime remains intact because it's fact.
Yeah.
I just clean the baggage.
But are you cleaning it for the 20 lifetimes ago or all 20 lifetimes since then?
I'm cleaning it, period. So it's gone.
Okay.
But from an emotional standpoint, right, which is why I talk about the chakras, you know, from an emotional standpoint, you've dealt with this, you've carried this, you're used to it. We're used to it. So this is where we have to retrain ourselves little by little, which is why I think past life regression would be fascinating after an Akashic record reading, to see if it matches. You no longer have the blocks and restrictions, but you still have the emotional baggage and the trauma in some cases.
All right, thank you. That clarifies it. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions? Wow. That's what I'll say. Well, if there's no more questions, is there a question, Isabel?
Yes.
Oh, you've got
Yes.
it.
Sorry, it takes me a little bit to navigate with that. From the last part, I'm trying to formulate it right. If somebody, you're clearing their past life, basically, of energy, if somebody hears you describing some traumatic experience, have you had people feeling scared, or have jitters about it, or feeling depressed later on? And they're obviously there to learn, and so you would think they're a little bit more open and strong about that. But do you find that it could also be very dramatic for some people?
Thank goodness I've never had that happen, but I have had very, very emotional sessions where the client has so resonated with their reading. I had a client who had a very, very difficult childbirth. Thank goodness was able to carry the baby to term. The baby's beautiful, healthy, but in her reading, she gave her child up. And so when she heard that, the emotion that came out of her when she said, I almost lost my baby in childbirth, and they said it was a miracle that she was born and healthy and everything was fine. She had a normal pregnancy, so there was no reason why that should have happened, and thank God the baby was fine. But that was a very emotional thing for her. And again, I've had clients say to me, I'm so nervous to hear what you have to say. And when I give them the reading, it makes sense, because they were very unhappy, or they were treated so poorly in that lifetime, and so that's why your soul remembers. Well, I clear it, and then I talk to them with every clearing. I give suggestions, the chakras, the crystals. I always recommend the heart crystals, because the rose quartz, because so many people, their heart chakra has been impacted so profoundly. I don't think I've ever had a reading where the heart chakra was not impacted. So that's always my go-to, where I'll say to them, make sure you have a rose quartz by your bedside, carry it with you, have a bowl in your living area, have some at work, because that really just feeds your chakras, and it gives you the love that you need while you're trying to move forward and make changes.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I actually have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Has any of this informed your practice as a school social worker?
No, and that's on purpose. I keep my my day job separate from my life, and that's because I'm dealing with underage kids. So if I allowed myself, I'm sure it could, but I'm very protective of the kids. They're younger, they're underage, and so I never want to do that.
Well, not so much practice on the students, but are there any intuitions?
A lot of them. A lot of them, and I'll use it to the extent if I get a really snarly kid, and I'll get an intuition and that they're just hurting, or they're sad, or something's happened, yes. So in that frame, I will use it, but I'm so protective of people's privacy, and I've always been that way my whole life. Picked the perfect profession that I try not to, but some things come like that. Yeah.
Sure, I was wondering that. Okay.
Yeah.
And actually, there was another question that I had before that one, because it was about the experience of accessing the fifth dimension and all the information that comes from that.
Yeah.
Because it seems to me that once you've created access, and it's open, it's the stuff that's going to come to you naturally because it's become part of your, it's part of your radar, your active radar.
Mhm.
So that's sort of that was in the back of my mind formulating when I asked that question. So it's interesting.
Yeah, they do say that proceed with caution because your intuition becomes heightened the more you do it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's
Thank
true
you.
for you, Angelo.
What
Your
are you
secret's
talking
out,
about?
baby.
What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
Oh,
I'm
you
muting myself.
opened up more questions. I can see that.
Serena has a question.
Katie and Serena.
I hope it's okay to share. It's actually more of a, I guess, a comment than a question, but I just wanted to share. This is the first time I've been on this kind of I actually work in a school-based health center with teenagers too, so I feel very much connected to what you guys are talking about. A lot of mental health stuff that comes up in my workplace, and I find it so, I feel often very alone. Like I want to do more. I'm like, I know I could give this kid Reiki, and I know I could do this, and I know I could, I wish I could, but I can't. It's not the right setting for it. But it's really, really nice to be among friends, like new, people who really understand and are coming from the same perspective and are actually having very similar experiences and needing to, I guess, keep some of our special interests for this sort of a setting. But it's really nice to know that I'm, among folks that have a similar daily experience in the workplace, I guess.
It may be possible for you to do more than you think in your setting. It's a matter of translation and accessing where your person is at that you're working with, using their language and just, bringing them up just one level and getting them excited. Angelo has been, he discovered ways to do this in his setting that are really very exciting, and waking up the children, helping them connect. He's got, crystals in there. He's got, what else you got, Angelo?
Oh, I happen to have oracle cards. I have crystals. I have a singing bowl.
Awesome.
I have an acoustic guitar that I walk around with. I'm the crazy social worker that walks around with an acoustic guitar.
That's awesome.
So and a lot of times it's funny. A lot of times, kids come to me trying to understand how they know things. So I'm like, okay. So I don't pull out the entire book and the whole encyclopedia, energy, right? So I talk to them about it and I explore how the experience is, and then in that context with what they came to me with, that's sort of where the work is. So, and how to tune into that and how to get out of your brain and into your higher self, into your intuition. So it's fun. It's great. I mean, it's nice to feel that I can it's more about me integrating myself and who I am in all my moments. So that's what I found.
I get that.
So,
that's why I'm
and knowing the limits of how far you can right, because so it's cool, it's fun.
I think Katie had a question. Do you have a question, Katie?
I did. Thank you so much for this. This has been such an amazing presentation.
Glad.
I was just curious, something just came to mind for me. I recently had a psychic reading, and one of the things that came through really strongly for me in that reading was that my ancestors are wanting to connect with me more deeply. And I was wondering, when you talk about spirit guides, do you typically find that they are ancestors, or would doing an Akashic Records reading help me to access, to connect with the spirit guides, I guess? I know you just mentioned that, and I was curious if they tend to usually be people that you've known in this lifetime or not.
So it depends who you talk to. I'll tell you, in my modality, spirit guides are people that we choose prior to every incarnation based on the life lesson we want to experience. So I wanted to experience ease, so I picked all my spirit guides and I said, okay, come with me and help me experience ease, right? I don't know if those are actual ancestors. What's been my experience that once your Akashic record is cleared, it's like you're clearing the cobwebs, clearing that stuff out of your way, and you become a more open channel. I've seen some really beautiful things come out of some of my clients. I've got a client who's become a very dear friend of mine who makes these beautiful malas, and she never knew she was going to do that. You know, it just kind of clears the way for you to be able to be that beautiful self that you're meant to be. I know she's talking to her spirit guides on a regular basis. So I don't know. I just think it clears things up.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you.
You're so welcome.
I just wanted to talk to Serena for a moment, because when you said, you know, you could use, I was just retrained in Reiki 1 and Reiki 2, infused with holy fire Reiki, which is something else. But yes, I'm around people all the time, including my family, and I want to help them. But if I ask whether I have permission, I don't have permission. You know? And I have a friend who's in trouble, and I know that I can help him. But if I ask, do I have permission to even talk to them, I get a no. So, I mean, that was one of the biggest things I've been grappling with for years, and still do, because, you know, you can't go there, but you know you can help.
But that's not to say that you can't send them. So one thing that I do with everyone that I love and the kids that I work with, you can send them white light. You can send them white light. You can send them healing light, protective light. And that's very powerful. And I think that speaks to what Pam was recommending to us right now, that, you know, the more we put that out there, the more we put that positivity out there and that love out there, I just think it moves mountains. It really does.
Beverly, you came on, I think, after Gail Christie introduced herself. She said she's working with the Holy Fire Reiki. So you girls might want to talk.
Oh, okay.
Holy Fire Yusui Reiki Master and a Holy Fire Karuna Reiki Master.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Just beautiful energy. And I love what you said, Grisella, about sending the white light, because I send Reiki to all of my relatives, including those who don't want to hear anything about it, but their higher self can accept it
That's right.
if it chooses.
Yeah, exactly.
So yes, I'd love to talk to you, Beverly.
Okay, great. Can you put your contact information in the chat?
Yes, yes, I could.
I'll put myself in here too.
I want to thank Grisella.
Thank you.
Beautiful job. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
You have us all very excited.
Thank you
Wow.
so much.
And thank you for all showing up.
Well, thank you. This is very timely.
It always is, right?
Yes. Yes, very timely.
It was very nice spending the evening.
Thank you.
And the new people who came on tonight, thank you so much for showing up and being here, and welcome. And hopefully
Thank you very much.
see you again.
Yes.
So have a good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
care.
Blessings. Thanks so
Bye.
much. Adios.